What is the best low-income job you ever had? Cook at a breakfast restaurant. No double shifts. The owner was really nice and would bust dishes when we were super busy. Most of the cooks and some servers were friends, so we regularly hung out. To top it off, we had windows, a lot of natural light. The atmosphere really made all the difference. Then the owner sold the place and the new owner was fully incompetent and we all left. I had the same experience. Was a great job. And I could eat anything off the menu for free when working. So as a poor student, my 3 evenings a week eating steak and good food was more than welcome. We were also allowed to get a few pints of beer after we closed the restaurant. Shift manager at Hollywood Video. Making $7.25 per hour. For some reason. We were the only store in the area where corporate allowed us to order whatever movies we wanted for the store. A lot of the employees were film students at the local university, so we ordered a lot of crazy shit. We had a great indie, foreign, anime collection. We had the entire Twin Peaks series on VHS. Because Hollywood Video didn't make you pay your late fees to rent new movies. Our clientele were mostly customers who couldn't rent from Blockbuster BC of high late fees. We hated the Blockbuster people and would crank call them all the time. We dial them up and ask shit like, do you have private parts? Can I touch them? Or do you have Lorenzo's oil? Can I rub it all over my body? Our store manager was the coolest guy who would let us play whatever movies we wanted, as long as they weren't rated R, in the store. We were such a motley crew. It felt like working at Empire Records. I miss that job and those people so much. A buddy of mine worked at an independent video rental place in high school. They had a great selection of obscure stuff. But what really made it neat was they had an actual theater in the back with projector and screen that we could watch whatever on after they closed. They also had some setup in the back room that made half a dozen copies of a movie at a time. Which I don't think was legal. And I'm not sure what the owners were doing with them since they weren't selling them out front. But it probably helped pad their bottom line and kept the place open longer than many smaller rental places. Selling comfort shoes. Nothing like seeing a customer walk in practically in tears because their feet hurt so much and leave with a huge smile on their face because their feet have stopped hurting. I worked in a record store off and on again for nearly 8 years when I was young. Met a woman that became my wife. And 2 of my longest closest friends while there. The store is closed. And it was torn down to build a Chick-fil-A a few years ago. I'll always cherish the years I spent there. It's funny how music you were into meant so much about a person's inner life a few decades ago, and now kids listen to mostly anything without a banjo in it. Even if hip hop is the biggest deal. Up until the pandemic, I had been working as a cameraman. Loved it despite the pay. I was on stage with great bands. Behind the net in the Owl. In the pits at motocross. And so much more. I've used this time to earn IT certs, but I may try and keep my side gig if I land a real job. Worked for a fireworks stand one summer. Pretty much explains itself. Oh, and at the beginning of the season they had an orientation. Which was just them naming and showing each firework and then lighting it off. 4 summers at a fireworks warehouse. Product evaluation was this. Drive out to the boonies. Blast off a bunch of inventory. Pretend you lunched tea all while stoned. Capturing live bees in little plastic bottles. Gently chilling them until they were docile. And gluing tiny colored plastic tags with numbers onto their backs. Then sitting outside in a flower bed with a notepad and trying to spot any of the tagged bees that returned to that site. Other highlights of that job were sheltering in a grad student's car during a sudden intense thunderstorm and having the tree we were parked under get literally exploded by a lightning strike. Police arresting a student worker for sitting in the bushes next to a public pool full of kids with a big camera and macro lens. He was photographing insects. Getting shot at in the woods by people playing paintball. Almost falling out of a tree while trying to get a wide overhead shot of a survey site. Pumping gas. It was fun. The people were nice. The smell of gas was intoxicating. Probably working for the city. I mowed all the baseball fields and city-owned lots. It was pretty nice. just working alone and listening to music. I also got to drive around in a loader when I needed to clean up the dump spots. It wasn't glorious work, but it was almost zen-like and I got to drive some seriously heavy machinery. Landscape gardening was my favorite job. We did lots of council contracts and my favorite was big slashing jobs. Just me, a whippersnipper, and a big field of grass to cut. The job satisfaction was f***ing incredible. Security at Fedex. I got in at 6 AM and off at 2 PM. Monday through Friday. Pay sucked. But it was a sub facility, so all I did was drink coffee, chat with people and wand a few people as they left. I worked as a moped delivery driver when I was 16-17 years old. At the time I had a lot of friends that spent a small fortune to be able to buy, maintain, and drive their mopeds. Despite never owning one, I could drive a moped and I got paid to do so. My nephew's first job was working as a porter for the local BMW dealership. His job was to pick up and deliver customers' cars for servicing. And he'd often have to take the cars out and get them up to operating temperatures so the technicians could diagnose them properly. He literally had a get out of jail free card to go and dog out other people's Beamers. I've waitressed in way too many restaurants and I hated all of them. Except for one sushi spot. It was in a hipster part of town, so my co-workers and the customer base were cool as hell. It truly never felt like work because I was essentially just socializing my entire shift. Enough time has passed where we all moved on or literally moved out of the city, but they felt like family and I really f***ing miss it. Oddly relevant. My old manager texted me yesterday, haven't talked to him since I left in 2016, just to say he was thinking about me and wished me well. Feels good, man. Working at a doggy daycare. Literally the best job I've ever had. The pay wasn't even that bad really. $15 an hour. WTF, I'm the manager at a coffee shop and I only make $9.50. No wonder I hate my life. Edit. Yes. Okay. I get it. I need to look for a new job. I will. I am. But I have very little marketable experience on my resume at the moment other than this managerial position and no education beyond high school even though I'm 29. I'm paying out of pocket for college classes, but basically every old white dude in this tiny town convinced me I'm not worth more than $10 HR until I get a degree. I'm in therapy for obtrusive and overwhelming negative thoughts, but I'll do my best to swallow my self-doubt and go looking for something else. I'm tired of being broke forever and tired of feeling like busting my ass to learn and work hard isn't good enough to be worthy of a wage that doesn't force me to skip meals so I can pay for a bed. Time to kick fear and doubt in the balls and get out there. Haunted house actor and ride operator in an amusement park. I was a ride operator at an amusement park and I hated it. People came there to have fun and they were total dicks about it. I had people threaten my life over hats and sunglasses. Say the most vile things about me and my family. And I even had one lady try to extort money from me because we closed the ride during a thunderstorm. The only redeeming quality was that I got to see some serious eye candy and ride a roller coaster several times a day. I got paid like $10.50 an hour, so it wasn't super low income. But I worked at a vitamin warehouse with a bunch of other dudes. We basically talked tea and laughed a lot while packing boxes together in a room all day. I think about that job a lot. I was at a shitty place in my life and going to work wasn't all that bad for once. Dishwasher at a seafood place. The cooks made sure I was well fed. It's possible to get tired of steak and lobster. I was 17 and barely paying the rent on my motel room. But it was my motel room. I worked in France as a sommelier. I harvested salt from salt marshes on an island in the Atlantic Ocean. Worked hours under the blistering sun. With my bare feet in contact with the hot cracked earth underneath. And the salt burning my skin. I was paid very little, but I loved every moment of it. Oh, the view. Such a wonderful view. The peace. The lack of stress. It was wonderful. 9/10 would do it again. I worked at a dog daycare in the play yard. One of the perks was that employee dogs could come in for free. with proof of vaccinations. So I got to watch my 4 dogs play 8 hours a day. Immediately after getting out of the army, I took a job as a security guard at a large factory as a filler until I could find something better. I was there about 6 months. My job was to patrol the parking lot during the night shift, making sure no cars were being broken into, etc. Which is just another way of saying ride around in a golf cart smoking weed all night. The pay was shit, but I loved that job. Working on my auntie and uncle's farm when I was in high school. Pay was shitty to say the least. But I got to look after all of these beautiful animals that all acted like pets because they were treated as such. It was so awesome seeing how all these farms animals would come up to cuddle and just hang out whenever I would be working around them. I also got to drive their truck around the farm, which was unreal to someone barely a teenager. Working in a closed-door pharmacy. It was the craziest place ever. There weren't many rules except correctly filling prescriptions and showing up on time. That would be a great gig. I worked in the base pharmacy as I was leaving the military for 6 months, and the best part was when I was filling and should just get into my own zone. I considered being a tech in the civilian sector, but I don't want to deal with people insurance. I worked for a mom and pop pizza place. I only got paid $5.75, 1997 or so, but if I had made a living wage I would have stayed there. I just like making good food and making people happy. The owner was a fun Vietnamese guy that was cool to talk to, and we used to watch UFC and boxing videotapes on the security system. It was a good time. Scooped popcorn at a movie theater. 4 free movie passes per week for the most entry-level position. Leads and managers got more. You could trade them for free food around the whole shopping center. So as an 18-year-old, I got all the free movies, popcorn and food from restaurants in the area I wanted. I worked at a movie theater when I was in high school for minimum wage. I believe it was $5.85 per hour at the time. And I loved it. You'd sell tickets and concessions for about half an hour, then just do whatever while the movie was showing. Also, free movies for me and family. And all the popcorn and soda you could want while you were working. Runner at an architecture firm. $7 HR in the 90s. But basically a delivery driver who got to hang out in a plush office around cool people and cool projects when I wasn't driving around a few hours a day. Stocking shelves is f***ing awesome. One of my favorite jobs was working at a giant liquor store stocking shelves. Customers were generally friendly and the work wasn't too bad. I learned a lot about booze and beer too. It wasn't even that awful when they cross-trained me on cashier. Despite the occasional argument over IDs or whatever. What ruined it for me is when they put the type of nasty, bitchy woman who shouldn't even be in customer service in the head cashier position. She was constantly on my ass for no reason. And terribly incompetent too. Just all around awful coworker. Worst supervisor. I told my manager I was quitting specifically because of her. It's been about 10 years and I still see her looking miserable behind that register. So I think I won that one. When I was 12 I worked in a babysitter type role for $2 HR. I absolutely loved it. The mom was always in the house, just working from home, and I got to play board games and read books aloud. I'm not entirely sure how I got that job. I just remember my mom asking if I'd be interested and my glowing ecstatic response. But I'd put $5 down that they were a lower income family than I guessed at the time, and that my ultra perceptive mother had coaxed her into accepting some cheap childcare. I worked for a smaller, comparatively, traveling carnival that did shows mostly within 2 hours of my home through high school. While I intended for it to be a short-term deal, I ended up working there for 11 years and through college. I really enjoyed everything about it. My boss was a stern, hard guy, difficult to please, but he knew how to treat his employees. If you put in respect, you got out respect. He taught me how to be a man. I learned the value of truly hard work. There would be days I'd work basically non-stop for 7 AM until 7 PM the next day, and working from 8 AM to 3 AM was a weekly occurrence. Of course there were things I didn't like so much. Mostly the pay. But overall, that job and the people there taught me a lot about life and developed me into a better person than I would have been without it. My current job is the best I've ever had. The pay is only $31k and not something I can do forever as I get older, but all I do is sit at a desk and do maybe 2 hours of work a day. As someone who used to work 10-12 hours days doing manual labor and also call center work where I had to work weekends taking a significant pay cut so I can play RuneScape and work on some college classes was absolutely worth it. First job at 15 years old. Developing pictures at a 1-hour photo shop. Interesting look into people's lives. Before social media existed. Paid $3.35 an hour. $3.35. Of the 80s. Then you got that big raise and hit $4 per hour. Get an apartment at $160 per month. $80 for car payment. $40 for insurance. Money for beer and food. What the hell happened? Worked as a delivery driver for Domino's years ago. Only Domino's in a fairly large town. It was busy enough to have constant deliveries without being hectic. The deliveries got the drivers out of having to do prep. Got paid to drive around and listen to music. The tips were nice too. Left every day with cash in hand. The job I have now. Filling medical gases into cylinders all night. Graveyard. Buddy of mine got me the job. Just me and him in a huge warehouse talking about whatever we want and getting a good workout for $24 an hour. I know it's not forever because I'm a student also, but I can already tell I'll look back at the time I spent here and cherish the memories. Lifeguard. Day consisted of showing up at like 9 or 10. Cleaning pool, swimming with a vacuum or brush. Hoping for rain so you didn't have to let the kids in. But not lightening so you didn't have to close, not get paid. And then watching kids swim. Tell them not to run. Work on your tan. And get paid $3 above min wage for the effort. Best job ever. I think I actually saved one kid out of 3 years of the summer job. He was braver than his swimming ability and went in the deep end he shouldn't have. Chuck E. Cheese. I absolutely loved working there. Pizza. Games. Giant mouse costume. Drunken parents fighting. What more could you ask for? Chuck E. Cheese on a Saturday is like Disney World where everyone is on meth. I enjoyed being a camp counselor in my teens. I loved being a camp counselor. I worked at a STEM day camp called Camp Invention nearly every summer in high school and college after I got too old to attend myself. The money was terrible but it was so much fun and the kids were really great. They were pretty much all there because they wanted to be. As opposed to some other summer camp programs that were basically just glorified daycare. In high school I worked at a local canoe livery. That was f***ing awesome. Basically I loaded up all the kayaks and canoes onto the trailers every morning. And then chilled until they all got back at the end of the day. In the meantime, I drank, fished, f***ed around on the tractor with my buddies. Plus at the end of the day, as people were getting back, people would always have leftover alcohol they'd give us. On top of all that, it was owned by an ex-NBA player. And I left with a $100 bill every day. High school me loved that place. Delivering strawberries. Just driving about 250 kilometers through the countryside each morning, in spring summer, and delivering strawberries to farmers and supermarkets. Everyone greeted me as the strawberry man and everyone was super nice and super happy to see me. I could listen to my own music and could do absolutely what I wanted as long as I came back in the afternoon. Plus, I regularly ate over half a kg of strawberries per day. Disbigad KFC yo. But like not BC it was itself a particularly good job but rather for the perspective that it afforded me by bringing into sharp relief the imperative to better oneself and aspire to a profession which might not merely fulfill the necessary yet shallow objective of fiscal independence, but also slake a deeper thirst for meaning, pursuing a purpose born of one's own peculiarities and autonomous intent. I worked with refugees over summer and got paid minimum wage but it was great. I helped them learn my country's language and with a tedious German bureaucracy, and I felt like I was genuinely making an impact. 2 posts above yours is someone talking about doggy daycare. For some reason, my brain read the first sentence of that. Then it skipped down to the second sentence of your post. So this is what I read. I worked at a dog daycare in the play yard. I helped them learn my country's language and with a tedious German bureaucracy, and I felt like I was genuinely making an impact. That was so confusing for a second. Working at a dog daycare. I got to supervise playgroups of 15-30 dogs. The job itself was great until a fight would break out. One dog ended up breaking some bones my hand in the midst of a scuffle, and I found myself questioning if $8 an hour was adequate. Haha. Undercover loss prevention for Macy's. I spent my days pretending to shop while out on the floor with my co-workers attempting to spot and catch shoplifters. We were allowed to use handcuffs and operated the whole building's CCTV. As a 23-year-old, it was such an interesting and fun job. Working on a farm for my uncle. It was long hours. Hard work. For very little pay as a 14-year-old. But man, did I learn a lot about mechanical things. Being responsible. And finding a way to get things done. Gave me a lot of confidence. Got to drive huge machines and care for animals. Starbucks barista in the early 2000s. Paid well. I loved my co-workers. And there was always free coffee. I was one in the mid 2010s. And I loved it. The pay wasn't super great. But I loved being around my co-workers. And always smelling like coffee. I also miss interacting with 100s of people a day. I felt like my social skills were really being well exercised in those days. I have definitely let them atrophy a little. Which is not something I realized could happen. Walmart. I lost 50 pounds in 11 months and girls would come up to me all day and ask me out. I shouldn't have quite without my 2 weeks notice. Opening shift as a barista cook at an independent coffee house. I knew and loved my regulars. Got to make soup and bake cookies every day and pick the recipes. Enjoyed the peace of arriving at work an hour before the rest of the world woke up. And was done at 2 PM and free to do what I wanted for the rest of the day. Which, TBH, was often getting high with my co-workers and hanging out at work chatting and doing homework. And since it was a tiny indie operation, I was also the booker and calendar editor for our nightly live music. Biggest band I ever worked with was Cake. Still one of the best jobs I've ever had. And I've been fortunate to love or at least like most of my jobs. If I could have lived on minimum wage plus tips, might have stayed there forever. $10 an hour to serve food at the zoo. View was cool. I got to look at rhinos on register. Usually I was just walking around the zoo delivering ice and hot dogs and stuff to vendor stalls. I always enjoyed dumping Dippin' Dots in their containers. I was the DJ for 2 Saturdays at a skating rink. I told the owner's son, the DJ on weekends and also an acquaintance of mine, that his music choices were shitty and gave him some pointers on what to play. He refused my advice. But his dad gave me the stand for 2 hours on a Saturday afternoon and had a blast. Working at a movie theater. Very low stakes. Everybody who works there was a nerd who loved movies. And I got to go to the movies for free for myself and one friend. 10/10 would do again if it paid more. Sadly a job that I don't think will exist many years from now. Open bracket. I worked as a car prep for Enterprise Rent-A-Car a few years ago. I didn't get hired at a normal location though. I got hired to clean the rental fleet of the local Mercedes, Jaguar, Land Rover, Porsche dealership. We rented cars to the rich people getting their expensive rides fixed. It was all base models like C300S, XFs and Evoques, but even the cheapest Mercedes is another level above the best Camry. Man, I miss the heated seats in those things. Can you believe they trusted 19-year-old me $50 K cars? I absolutely loved working on golf courses. The last one I worked at actually paid half decent. But the bigger issue is it's a seasonal job here, Ontario, Canada. And that season isn't super long. And is also inconsistent from year to year because it totally depends on the weather. Since I'll never be able to legit retire, I can't imagine myself back mowing on a golf course in my later years. I am a delivery driver for a supermarket near me. And the reason why I like it is so much is because it's so easy to combine it with my study. I work 3 days a week. I can decide which days each week. I arrive at the warehouse, get in the van and drive to all our locations. I earn about A16 as a 20-year-old. And I prefer this so much more than my internship. I was a lifeguard in college. The money is garbage for risking your life. You worry about melanoma later on. But hey, you're at the beach. There's a camaraderie with the people you work with like I've never had at other jobs. And you get offers from groupies. Seriously. Some of these people are so skilled at it. It's like they went to a class. Plus, pulling distressed people out of the water is its own reward. Helpful hint. If you're trying to pick up a lifeguard, for the love of God don't fake drown. You'd be surprised by how many people do this. Worked for a seasonal toy store during the summer in a super slow mall. It was a lot of closeout warehouse junk. I'd stock a dozen boxes a day and then just spend the rest of the day listening to the radio and reading. On the off chance a customer did come and I rarely had to help them. Minimal cleanup. No register. They had to go across the way to the main store. I read about 20 books that summer and actually work maybe an hour each day. There were also several super hot girls working at other stores that would stop in and chat. Really good summer. Working at a small movie theater, 4 projectors. The shows all went in every 15 minutes. So you only really worked for an hour. Then got a 2-hour break before the next time you had to do something. Everyone I worked with were great and everyone liked each other. So we would just DCK around during the lulls in work. Most of the managers would even goof off with us. I had a blast. I had the cushiest summer job one year in my hometown when I was 19. In the mornings I ran the tennis program for kids and in the afternoons I worked at an ice cream shop owned by the town, where a bunch of my friends also worked. On days when I couldn't do tennis I would go to the local museum and help some guy set up exhibits for an hour or two. Delivery driver for a local pizzeria back in high school and college. Great tips. Driving around listening to music all night. Free slices food during shift. Awesome. Funny bosses. I still stop by to visit and catch up with them from time to time. I worked at a daycare. It was hard as FCK and management sucked but I loved those kids. I would dread going into work but as soon as I got there and had 23 and 4-year-olds screaming my name and running toward me to give me hugs, my day immediately turned around. That being said, I would never work in a daycare again and I will never put my kids in a daycare. Most of the teachers I worked with were so lazy and did the bare minimum. Overnight computer operator in a factory. And X200B. 10 hours shift and I had 2 tasks. At 2 AM I had to print reports and put them in mailboxes and if the mainframe went down I had to call the IT guy and tell him. Otherwise I was free to do whatever I wanted. I spent the time learning to write software and contribute to the Linux kernel. Also got some of the machinists to teach me how to work lathes, mills and CNC machines. Got paid $13 an hour for that job. It was awesome. Only downside was constantly being covered in carbon and smelling like burned rubber all the time because of what we manufactured. And being in a flash fire one time. Working at a heavy metal bar. 4 nights a week of live metal bands. And I made a whole lot of friends. Plus the booze and extracurricular fun that comes with working in a bar is always a plus when you're in college and getting FK'd up on the cheap is a premium. I saw a whole lot of absolutely terrible bands. But I saw a bunch of great ones. too. It was an absolutely perfect part-time job while I was a student. I worked at an amusement park for the summer right after graduating high school. They had dorms there. And it was my first experience living on my own. It was cool meeting different people from different countries. Also, if I worked a shift in the afternoon, I'd get up early and ride a few roller coasters before my shift started. How can you not be in a good mood for work after you ride a few coasters every morning? The best job I ever had was painting fire hydrants over a summer. Go to the office. Pick up some paint and a truck. I had a map that listed all the hydrants. Spend a day walking errand. Painting. No stress. No one breathing down your neck. The only thing I had to worry about is not killing the job, as other workers told me. Tower Records car 2000 to 2004. No question. I love my job now. But working at a record store, getting to meet cool people, exposed to all kinds of new and different music, goof around for like $6.50 per hour. It was the best. Hands down. I think about that job all the time. I also met my wife while working there. We are celebrating 15 years of marriage tomorrow. I worked at GameStop, and while the company itself is horrible, the people I worked with, including my boss, made it super chill. He would help us all hit our goals so everyone was over the quota. And he always helped us by staying over and bringing stuff for us to eat. That was an awesome job, and is sad to see that GameStop itself sucks ass. Park maintenance at Hacklebarney State Park. I would have never gone to college if it paid more than $6 HR. 500 plus acres to off-road on? Dead trees to chop down? Bridges to build with hand tools? Just lumberjacking all day in the fresh air. This might not count, but before I got officially hired onto my current job, I was working for the company as a contractor and making minimum wage. It was considered an internship. I was, and still am, a software developer. As an intern, there was a lot of stuff I didn't have access to, so I'd have to wait on others. During this time, I just play video games. The dev team is pretty chill. I worked in a high-end luggage store that some days wouldn't get any customers. My boss was cool and let me use my laptop in the back, so some days I literally just played on it and watched movies. Worked at a grain mill making $13 an hour. Super chill job, but horrifically understaffed. So the normal shift for winters was about 16 hours long. Left that job because the boss would let her co-workers drinking on the job. And being generally slide. Worked at an arcade called the Coin Castle back in the 90s. The owner was cool and would let me keep it open overnight for my friends, and we would play poker, Mortal Kombat, get drunk and pass out in the air hockey table. I have a lot of great memories from that place. Sweet shop. Something about seeing kids get excited about sweets and being able to give them little pieces to try, and seeing adults get that childlike wonder over seeing something they haven't eaten in forever. Sometimes old people would find sweets they hadn't had since they were a kid. Just seeing it all was super rewarding, even though I got paid barely anything. Working at an escape room. The people you work with are great. The job is fun. You meet cool people. Sometimes you get tips. And I guess technically it paid a couple dollars above minimum wage. But still. $9.75 isn't enough where I live. Especially since the nature of the job means you might work 50 hours one week, 15 the next. Oh, also I met my fiance working that job. She's looking over my shoulder, so I have to mention it. I worked at Costco starting at 16 through college, and then a little during my breaks at college. Started at $10.25/hour in 2001 with time and a half all day Sunday. For a high schooler I was rolling in it, and they worked on a pay ladder, so the folks who had been there a long time were raking in over $20 an hour. I had better health benefits and stock options than my father, who had an excellent career in the nuclear sector of the government. I started off pushing carts, but within 2 years they would let me work wherever I wanted, which was really cool. I did register, worked returns, membership, checked memberships and receipts at the doors, picked up a shift from time to time in the bakery. I even set the East Coast record for the most executive membership upgrades in a year. I was that annoying guy who would check your card and then sell you on upgrading from regular to executive. I always told myself if my college path didn't pan out, Costco was an amazing place to work for life. Sometimes I still dream about giving it all up and going back to Costco. I worked for a video rental place back when they were still a thing. I honestly had fun with it. I got to talk about new movies with people and my boss was super nice while also teaching me good work ethic. To this day I can't believe how she was so patient with old high school me. I have a lot of fond memories of that place. I've only had one low income job and it was working at a cabinet shop sanding doors. Worst jive I've ever had. It paid $11.50 an hour. The rest of the jobs I've had paid $20+ an hour and they were shitty too, so there's that I guess. Working the concert venue in the summer. $10 an hour. Getting to hear a bunch of live shows and just making sure people don't get in a fight. Most concerts super chill. Just every once in a while total assholes. Also only fun people work there. Also I got to meet Alice Cooper one time when I worked backstage. Bather at a dog grooming parlor. Most of the doggers were happy to see me and loved getting a nice warm bath and body massage. When they were all clean and cut they looked so proud of themselves. I just wished my feet and hands weren't always so pruny. Cook at a summer camp. Got paid more than the counselors. Our food was great. Our manager believed in the importance of good childhood nutrition. And I got so many leftovers to take home. She didn't believe in wasting food. Entire loaves of brioche French toast? Check. Half a sheet tray of fresh cookies? Check. 10 servings of awesome lasagna? Check. Half a sheet tray of fresh cookies? My first real job was at a sunglass hut outside of a travel plaza. No uniform. Could bring a radio to play all day. And I could read a book when I didn't have customers. I also became friends with all the smokers because they came out for smoke breaks and would even bring CDs to listen to sometimes. It was the late 90s. Worked at a summer camp. You meet so many people and it's a tight community, so it almost becomes a family. Plus, people come to enjoy themselves, so they are generally happy. Never made such great friends. Meet great people. Had so much fun partying. And lacked so much sleep. All while making $250 a week, room and board provided. Trolley boy at a large supermarket in the UK, tending that flock of trolleys. Freedom of working. Getting to hang out with an eclectic bunch of colleagues, students and the handicapped. Pushing 70 in a row on a Sunday when it closed early. Now work in an office and not a day goes by that I don't think about it. A guard at a bicycle parking. Netherlands here. We have a bunch of guarded bicycle parkings. Usually in city centers or around larger stations. I worked at one that doubled as a workshop at a train station. Essentially I would be giving bikes a label when they came in. Made sure the labels were returned if people left. That let us keep track of the amount of open spots. I'd also take in bikes for repairs and hand them back after they'd been fixed. Really simple stuff. The benefits, were awesome. The bike repair guys would teach me basic bike repair. And fix my bike for me if I didn't get it at no cost. Awesome as a student. And during weekends, early mornings, nights I'd be alone. And was pretty much allowed to do as I pleased as long as I was there to help people if needed. Lots of studying and YouTube while getting paid for it. The pay was minimum wage to start. But we got double pay on weekends and night shifts because nobody wanted those.